Welcome to IslandStats.com Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is Jason Ford. Unfortunately, we are not joined by Gary Moreno at this time, but hopefully before the night's out, he will get a chance to log on and join us here on Conversation. Jason, new show, new sporting event. For us, we done a show some years ago, the football show. Got a lot of feedback on that. And now it's time to turn our attention to the wider sports range for Bermuda, and wanting you to join in with me and bringing this message to the island and Caribbean, because we do have reporters from the Caribbean who will be joining us, giving us some updates on what's going on in their countries. But just the idea of having this show, what was your thoughts when I approached you?
Well, first things first, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. And I think you missed the banter. I think you really missed the banter. You got away with not crowning me all my jewels when I won a lot of debates back then and my picks back then. So I think you just wanted to get back at me. So first things first, I was reserved because I wanted to make sure that I need to prepare myself, And then when you mentioned another co-host, which he's a Tottenham fan, I was like, we're almost doomed from the outset. So in saying all of that, no, I'm just glad to be back.
Well, we're going to start off right from the top. As we know, on Monday, the Premier announced that we will be moving to phase 2 on Thursday, which is tomorrow. When we look at some of the things that's going to be allowed to happen, sports is not totally open as of yet, but we do have the sport of golf, we do have the sport of tennis. There are options for organizations to train using social distancing, such as we know we're going to go into the cricket season at some point. If not, guys still have to get themselves ready. What's your thoughts on the fact that now we've seen a lot of people playing the sport of golf? Tennis is ramping up because there's a lot going on the tennis courts. What's your thoughts having been through phase 1 and now getting ready to go to phase 2?
Well, initially it's just the state of unknown. We've been in the state of unknown for quite some time, and it's hard to pinpoint what's the best road to take right now. Obviously, safety is paramount, and that's not just for the athletes, but also their families. And you're seeing that not just locally, but you're seeing that across the world. You're seeing world-class athletes not just make decisions based on their livelihood, but also their families. And I think that's what's probably most important, is that before opening up or, to the next phase or whatever, do we have all the things in place first? And then first and foremost, not just for the athletes, but also for the fans, because obviously this virus is deadly, and you would hate for anybody to lose their life over something that we should be celebrating, what we call sport.
Yeah. We've seen in England on Tuesday and then on Wednesday where the English Premier teams are allowed to start training again. We've had the Watford captain say, for his family's sake, his son's sake, he's not going to start training. I think each case has to be handled differently, and a case-by-case scenario. You're going to have a lot of players who don't want to begin training because of the outside of football life, that they have a family and that they have kids and all. And then you have some people, some footballers who want to get back to work and will throw all that stuff out the door, such as we seen the Bundesliga on the weekend, players celebrating goals as if there were 50,000 people in the stands. The problem with the aspect of social distancing when it comes to a sport like football is almost impossible when you have two teams battling to win a game.
Well, you just saying that, during the week, there's tests were taken from some teams in England, The
Six people were tested
yeah,
positive.
6 people came back out of 700 odd tests.
750.
Right, where you had 1,700 tests from the Bundesliga and 10 people came back positive.
Right.
So, you start looking at numbers, and even that alone starts to scare you because it's like, okay, like one is maybe too many.
Right.
And you listen to Dean, the captain of Watford, is saying, I'm not allowed to go and get a haircut, but you only jump in the box with guys for headers and stuff. So it's, Earl, and I think there's so many layers to this because it's not, we're thinking about, we're talking about right now, high end, I'm going to say high end athletes, pro athletes. But what about the guys who are the one fighting for a contract?
Right.
What about guys who are out of a contract? Where this might be the only chance to get a little bit of money for the rest of the year. What about the amateurs?
Yeah.
What about the team? What about the team? There's so many layers to this. And once again, I just keep reiterating, we're in that place of unknown. And I think everybody's just waiting to see, who's going to be the guinea pig? Who's can you try it and we will judge on for
Mikey?
Yeah, exactly. You try it first. All right, well, okay, we're not going to do that. And you see that. I mean, you look at some sports, okay, some sports is probably built for the social distancing when you talk about media, because media is basically taken over. You look at sports like sailing and we've even watched ICC. We watched the last World Cup, and you was up early in the morning watching games, and you looked in the stands, was nobody in the stands.
Right.
So, I mean, would you say that's social distancing by default? But in saying that, you can see where it's going to affect changing rooms.
Yes.
It's going to affect. I just saw a message regarding, and let's go off subject, but on the Royal Caribbean cruise line.
Yes.
We're thinking about the buffets. So you do know in changing rooms and team, quarters and hotels, they have buffets. There's no individual dining experience. Yeah. It's a buffet. So, what our teams are putting up, it's one of those things that, like I said, I mean, who's going first? Let's see.
Well, I mean, especially in the professional sports, you have players' unions of all types. They have to be able to talk with the players to get some general consensus on how they feel about getting back into action. And obviously, it's going to come down to a vote, just like the clubs had their meetings and it came down to a vote. So, like we said at the beginning, you're going to have those people that are skeptic about getting back into action, and then you're going to have those people that really want to get into action. So,
I just want to stop you right there for 1 minute. When we're talking about voting, a lot of times it's not majority vote wins. And I always say all the time, it all depends who votes.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Because if you have the biggest star in these leagues going against the vote,
yeah,
I'm just going to throw it out there.
I believe the way they set it up is the captain of each team, because they've had captains meetings. So I think the captain of each team is the vote. I guess we could use basketball and LeBron James voting no. You think the guy from the New York Knicks
just
voting
yes? The stir he made when he initially said that he was not going to play without fans.
Right.
A few months ago. Now I'm pretty sure he's rethought that. Everybody else is, But in saying that, and when we're talking about professionals and we're talking about stadiums and stuff like that, we're not really talking about players. We're talking about people that work there.
Mm-hmm.
So it only depends. Like I said, I would just hope the testing prior, during, after, they're able to do that.
Yeah.
And
well, in the professional world, they're able to do that. They do the test. I think it's 2 days before the matches or training, and then every time they show up to training or match day, and then they get tested before the game, after the game, and then they get the results and so forth. So in the professional world, they have the funding to do that. In the amateur world, they don't have the funding to do that consistent testing, and I firmly believe that it's going to come down to temperature testing for the amateur for domestic sports. It's going to come down to, because that's the cheapest way to do it, most economical way to do it. That they will do the temperature check prior to the game, and if the person has a temperature, no go, get out of here, 7 days, boom. But outside of that, it's just, there's no feasible way to keep doing a test on the many amateur sports that we have globally, let alone just in Bermuda.
And when you talk about that, I mean, obviously it'd be easier with the individual sports when you look at tennis, golf, and these sports, but when you talk about team sports.
Right. Yeah, so we're talking about too many. Well, Jason, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back after these messages. Welcome back. Jason, the Bermuda Football Association will host a meeting with the clubs next week at this time during this show to discuss the plans for the 2019-2020 season. Obviously, it's clear that their deadline of May 31st will not be reached, so some alternative solution to the end of the season will be decided upon at that meeting. Looking back at this season, North Village has already wrapped it up. There's a possibility that any one of three other teams could go down with Boulevard, and obviously in the first division, the only thing left to play for is St. George's and Devonshire Colts, who will be league champions. Devonshire Colts have played all their matches. St. George's had one left to play. Just looking at it, what's your thoughts on how this will be resolved?
I believe the remaining games will be played. I hate to say this, but there's not been many crowds to these games during the season, during last season, during the season before that. So it's just obviously if you get the buy-in through the players to get the players tested, play the game. I'm pretty sure we'll get
where they can play too. So,
but that's home and away actually matter. When at the end of the season,
some will argue, yeah, I want to play at home.
Yeah, they will argue. And I say this here because once again, there's no perfect solution.
Right.
There's no perfect solution. So it's either got to say, okay, we're going to do it this way or not. I mean, it's not. It's. We're also in that time period where we're transitioning into our next sport, which is cricket.
Yeah.
And a lot of these clubs are two-sport clubs.
Yes.
So do you sacrifice not being able to play home games for a cricket season that's about to start?
Right. One home game for a whole season of cricket.
Right. So you do play one home game of football and sacrifice maybe your first month?
Yeah. Which is already going to be late because they wanted to start the first week in May. So we're now at the end of May, and we haven't had any cricket. And if there's a possibility of starting maybe July for cricket, you want to be able to get the wickets ready, the players out training, and all sorts of stuff. So it's interesting how that discussion's going to have to go, and it's vital that you have the proper people in the meeting to make those decisions.
Yeah. And another caveat to all of that is when you have a player who's involved in both sports, we're at amateur level. So they love the sport when the sport is in season.
Yes.
But then you know and I know, as soon as their season has come to the end, it's like, they are geared up and hyped to play the next sport.
Yeah.
And I would think that sometimes we've seen players, not even worry about that promotional game or whatever the case may be.
Right.
We've seen it in the past.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting how they resolve it. But I believe, it was different. It would be different if we had 8 to 10 games remaining and the leagues weren't decided.
Right.
I think it would be more in a dire strait of problems. But right now, I think.
But we saw on Monday the Scottish League ended with close to 8 games to play.
Yeah.
Celtic were deemed as champions with a 12-point lead, but a game in hand on Rangers. Hearts were relegated 6 points adrift of the second from the bottom, but still there's games to play. You never know. They've done some tests to see what would happen.
We could almost. I really don't want to do this, but if you look at the English Premier League, we know that league is basically locked up.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Not officially, but you would say the chances are.
Right.
The difference are our leagues are locked up.
Yeah.
So even if you don't play the other games that don't matter,
but you still have to play those relegation games because it's 3 teams, any one of 3.
That's what I'm saying. You play those games.
Right.
If you play team, I don't see the sense in playing teams who don't matter. Either way.
But then the other problem is it's positioning for the top 4 spots.
Well, once again, that's like I said, that's where all these things get sticky.
Yeah, because you're looking
at the lineup for next year's cup. Yeah, for cup. So I think, and with football, to be honest with you, if the clubs agree to not having those home games, we can have them run a night game at BA where they start the season off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't affect none of the fields.
Right.
And you could do it during the night. So you can have the cricket during the day, even if you run into the overlap, you can have cricket during the day and we have football at night. And I hate to say this here, that happens at the end of cricket season.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if push comes to shove, what they can do is have 2 fields marked out on the north field of the stadium, right? Play simultaneous games there, play 1 at BAA, and then 1 on the main field of the stadium as well. So that gives you 4 matches. The North Village PHC game doesn't really have to be played because both of those teams, North Village has already wrapped up the league, and PHC are guaranteed a top 4 spot. So I don't know. I don't think they can catch the second and third team. So there you go. There's 4 games in
and I know this, Earl. I think a lot of teams will play up that card.
Oh, sure. And the surface at BAA. So those 4 pitches would allow you to get 4 matches played, and then possibly the following day or the following night you play the 1 game St. George's versus Vasco.
Now let's be the elephant in the room. If it wasn't under these circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the phase that we are in locally, phase 2, where clubs are not allowed to be open.
Right.
If clubs were open, then clubs might be pushing back on this because of the revenue.
The thing is, the clubs now can open.
Well, they can't have too big crowds inside, and it's restricted, limited.
So
But
if the club
you
is,
think let's think of a good matchup. Let's say a good matchup,
yeah,
right?
but
At your club. At your club.
yes, you're gonna have to open brotherhood. You're gonna have to open brotherhood.
Let's go to George's, right? And just think about how they're gonna have to restrict people who want to have a drink.
Yes.
So, but we don't right now. I think we could almost take that out of the equation. I think once again, if we just get the buy-in from the players that they want to play no matter what, give them the option of, like you said, the Moorfield, the National Stadium, and
Right.
yeah, you can, like I said, you can knock the games off. And now, how many players are kept in shape?
Well, that I think.
And I'm serious with that because we're also talking about risk of injury. So we're talking about amateur players.
Yes.
So do you say? I mean, if you look at these other professional sports, before they start up, they're giving these players 2 to 3 weeks.
Right, and that's what the association president said. That's what the association president said prior to the when they announced that the league was going to be suspended. If they were able to get back, they would give them 2 weeks of preparation time for the final game. So that it's still a possibility, but it would have to be some understanding with government because if you're going to let games be played, then the social distancing part is kind of out the door, especially when it comes to football.
Well, if you're seeing the shift, not just sports, but if you're seeing the shift, the onus is now is starting to be turned on the individual.
Yes.
So it's going to be up to the individual if they want to take part in it, and that's the choice they have to make. If not, I mean, I don't think nobody's going to,
right.
There's going to be no penalty if you don't.
Yeah.
People understand. So there's going to be a choice, and like I said, if the players feel that they want to play it out, then I think it will get played out.
Right. And then we turn our attention, because obviously we've talked about it moving from football to cricket, the Classic. There's still some decisions to be made by St. George's and Somerset. If
even Eastern County first.
What's that?
We haven't had no word from Eastern County either. So
that's true. Well, not even Western County, and they're first. They were supposed to be first.
They were Central County. You keep forgetting Central County.
I was just going to say, Central and Western County were supposed to be on the same day. We know that the Bermuda Cricket Board have a schedule. They haven't released it yet. I guess they're waiting to find out when the cricket will start, and then obviously those matches will be put into the schedule and then announced. But the dates that the Central, Western, Eastern, and Cup match usually fall at a certain time. But as you have indicated, we have yet to hear from those organizations, obviously because they are not sure or are waiting the guidelines given by the government on when things can progress. So I think the big one is obviously Cup match. And a lot of people are waiting to hear from the clubs. Obviously, it's Somerset because they're the host this year, on what plans they have in place to have the match. Whether it's going to be canceled, whether it's going to be postponed, whether it's going to be pushed back. And I know it's a tough position to be in because we've seen governments around the world have to make some tough decisions on what the progress is going to be with this deadly disease, and they've come under a lot of pressure. No matter which country it is, they come under pressure because of the decisions that they make. And obviously, no one likes to be in a position to say that they're not going to play a game, or they're not going to play the biggest game in the country history, or the year for the country. So it's one of those things where you have to get all the information you can get from your executive committee, from your members, from the other club, and how you're going to progress forward. So hopefully before or by the end of the month, we will hear something from the government and from Somerset Cricket Club on Cup Match. From the government standpoint, hopefully we can see some progress made for more sports to become active, and then obviously from Somerset, what's the process for Cup Match, and then obviously Western County, Central County, and Eastern County, if they're going to switch their dates, what they're going to do with their games, whether or not they'll be held in 2020, or will they just host the games in 2021? So it's up in the air how we progress right now.
Well, I'm very optimistic. I think all these games will be played. I think anytime you have a crisis or something of this nature, I think that's when we hear the true spirit of just humans, especially us Bermudians. We love to overcome stuff. We love that underdog tag. And I think this is actually a time where now we've seen it just in personal lives where, so take a step back and reflect on family. Reflect on the people around us. And I think that's ideal for these sporting organizations. And if we're talking about Cup Match, we're looking at two clubs that basically is the entity of Cup Match. But I think now that more than anything, I think it should be shared sacrifice, because when you're talking about this game that generates so much money, not only for the clubs, but also for the island. I think it should be shared sacrifice. I don't think that one club should take the onus of the run just to think that right now, will they be able to get the money they could normally make? No. So you would hopefully that everybody will come together and work out a plan. There'll be shared sacrifice. And whether it was over a 2 to 3 year, phase where, okay, you know what, we might have to cut this or we might have to do this, but it's between both clubs because it's their event. Right. Unfortunately, we're not privy to those conversations, and we hope those conversations do take place and how they take place. Well, through history, we've seen clubs being very independent on their thinking, the thought process. They come together on a few issues, but for the most part, they stay independent on a lot of the thought process. I think this is like most sports now, it's just unknown. So you know what? Let's just try it. What's worse can happen? That it doesn't get played. So when you're looking at these games who are over 100-year history, you want it to be played. Right. But we can understand if it doesn't get played also. Mm-hmm. So once again, I just think the safety first for the players. Obviously, you can throw around, we've seen in other major sports in the world, without fans. Is that possible? We're in media, so we will love it because we love the game itself. Right. We will love it. But, the experience, but to make sure that we do have the games, the infrastructure. Is the infrastructure safe for not only players, but also fans? So it's once again, it's a lot of layers. And I think because we have somewhat of a long summer, I don't think we have to be jumping at. We're coming to, Cup Match is normally the last week of July, first week of August. Mm-hmm. We still have some time. I know it's getting close. Right.
Again, it's all the flair and pump and pageantry.
Right.
That.
So just to throw it out there, maybe this year no scaffolding.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that can be thought of. Right. Maybe we don't have Cup Match and St. George's allow Somerset to have it up Somerset next year.
Right. It's an option.
Options. It's so many different options that you can go. Mm-hmm. But obviously, both clubs need this type of revenue, this type of income to actually survive throughout these years that they don't have the Cup Match at their venue. So once again, I just think it's something that could be shared sacrifice. That's why I keep going back to shared sacrifice. Right.
Obviously, we await to hear those decisions that will come from obviously Somerset Cricket Club President Rashan Blanchette, and we want to wish him well and him and his executive, because they're going to have to make a tough decision.
Hard decisions will have to be made, but you know what? When you're a leader, you're expected to make those hard decisions.
That's why you put your hand up to be the leader.
All I say, listen, any decisions you make, is just make sure you get as much information as possible. As much information as possible. And you use your minds around you. Let's just make the best decision possible. No safety is critical, but make the best decision.
We're going to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by our Caribbean reporters to get an update.
Good day, Mr. Basden. Good afternoon to your listeners in Bermuda. Over the last couple of months, sport in Trinidad and Tobago has been at a virtual standstill. But of course, there are things happening in the background. One of those things being, of course, as you mentioned, the situation with the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association and its board that was removed by FIFA and a normalization committee put in place. That normalization committee is led by Mr. Robert Haddad, and it's been a fight because, for one, the previous board is saying that they are now they still maintain control of the TTFA finances, and staff hasn't been paid. Of course, the TTFA, of course, is a debt crisis by itself. Over $50 million owed to creditors, whether it be construction for the new home of football or to hotels. Many different things just keep popping up, and of course it's going to take a toll on local football. Of course, our local league, just before the lockdown for COVID-19 recently started, after almost a year without any kind of football. Also, with the easing of the restrictions here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have been allowed to resume individual sports. So, for instance, golf and tennis in particular have been allowed now on the public courts as well as the private courts, and also the private and public golf courses. But most of the private courses and courts have been the ones that have opened up. I was speaking here now to the mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Joel Martinez, and he said that based on the information he received from his healthcare personnel, they are not going to open the public courts in Port of Spain. But also, I also spoke to the president of Tranquility, which is another big tennis club in Trinidad and Tobago, and they have opened their courts while practicing social distancing measures. Of course, too, some of our local track and field athletes as well are using the time to inform the public about the sport. We have in particular J. Hugh Gordon, our world champion in hurdles, and we have Jerome Richards, our Commonwealth gold 200-meter runner. They have started a Zoom meeting where they are, talking to the young athletes about track and field and how to deal with the stresses of competing and also the stresses of the lockdown. That is basically it for now, but thanks again for having me and hope to join you next week.
Well, I want to thank the Caribbean reporters for sharing. Just want to touch on Keith Fuentes' report, Juggler, out of Trinidad. There's a lot going on with the Trinidad Football Association. FIFA has taken over and put a committee together to run them. As we heard from him, they're $50 million in debt. So they have a lot of problems right now, and there's court cases all around, appeals at CAS and so forth, but they have a long way to go before things look like they're going to get any better for football in Trinidad.
The unfortunate part is, Earl, I'm just hoping none of this actually affects the game on the field. And right now, it's pretty looking that way. A lot of times you want the administrators to take care of the administration, and you want the players to take care of the game. And when you see it bleeding over, the fans are actually the ones who are actually going to lose. So I'm just hoping that, wishing, all the parties who are involved, obviously the fans, I still believe it's a fans game. That's what sports is, a fans game, and the players. The players, one thing about administrators, I hate to say this, but you've got many years to be an administrator. Some administrators will stay there for their lifetime.
Right.
You only have so many years to play a sport or be at elite level at a sport.
Right.
I mean, you've played masters on tennis before I watched you, I won't call it tennis, but, I've watched you up at that spot we went to, and it was painful. But
did you both get over the net?
But it's elite tennis. I think or elite sports, you have a certain amount of years to play.
Yeah. He also mentioned about the fact that track and field athletes are looking to get back into it. They've got their Zoom calls going and so forth, and trying to figure out and work out a schedule on getting back into action. That's going to be a big challenge as well, because as we know, we were due to host the Carifta Games in April. That has now been given back to us for 2021 and will take place at the National Sports Center. But the athletes, they're still working on the eligibility, because remember, people age up and age out, and will those athletes who were, especially under 20s, who would have seen their last attempt at Carifta, will that be their loss? So there's a lot of banter going around the Caribbean right now with the organizations on just how to do that. We know that the IOC has a limitation on age group for football in the Olympics, and they've come out to say that, because it's under 23, they've come out to say that anyone that was eligible for the 2020 games is still eligible for the 2021 games. So they've made that. Now, football's a little different. It's a team sport. As you get older, you get a little stronger, but it's still is a team sport. If you're talking about track and field, a 19-year-old running against a 20-year-old, some might say, well, there's not much difference, but a 20-year-old got another year to work on that body to make it even stronger, stands a chance of having an edge. So
I'll tell you, one of my major concerns for the athletes, as you know, especially when it comes to track and field sports, is always peaking at the right time.
Right.
And you have athletes basically peaking for these major events. Mm-hmm. Now they're being pushed back a whole year. There's almost a lot of athletes after the major events, they shut it down.
Right.
They shut it down, give the body some rest, and then ramp it up, because it's just hard to keep that motivation going for 365 days or longer. So rather, do you still do some meets as soon as possible? Do you take your break now, like you would normally take your break or whatever? Mm-hmm. It's just, you're going to be so much on a routine.
Right.
So I hate to say this, sir, it almost brings, I just think it brings everybody back to the pack.
Yeah,
and it's just me.
In a sense, yes. In a sense, yes. And I think each individual will have the pros and cons about how their body will react to getting started again. When will they be able to get started? Because in some countries, the training and competition ban will be lifted before other countries. So when do we get back into that mode of competition? I know for any athlete, sitting around for 2 months is torture.
Yes.
Even when they shut it down, they don't always just walk away from it because they want to make sure that they keep the body in some sort of shape, not competition shape, but just ready. So whenever they need to turn that switch back on, it's an easy transition to get ready. We watch a lot of what Flora Duffy does, and she's training every single day, whether she's getting ready for a competition or she's just finished the season. And I'm pretty sure the same thing happens to our footballers like McKee, Reggie, Nathan and these guys as well. Our squash players in Micah Franklin and Noah Brown, they're training all the time, but it might be, I'm just doing turn training right now because I don't have a competition for X amount of months. So it's one of those things where we're looking at what these athletes can do and who will be allowed to do what they can. Because as we know, the coronavirus in different parts of the Caribbean have hampered others a lot more than a few others. So it's going to be.
Well, just listen to the report. Just listen to the report, and I must commend you also regarding stats. But just listen to the report. You're seeing the exact same thing, not only in locally but Caribbean, but also in the States and in Europe. You're seeing Zoom meetings and Zoom interviews where now you're getting to see what other athletes are going through and how they're managing different things of that nature. Where before we really didn't, unless you was on a personal chat or you had some personal phone conversations with another athlete,
right.
You're getting to see now a lot more interviews of how someone is dealing with the situation. So I think as a family, a sporting family, we're all learning from each other. And I think that's can probably be, at the end of the day, I know it's all about competition, but you're all learning from each other. And, everybody's going to be looking to get an edge on what, okay, Earl, you're doing this. Let me see if I can do this one step better.
Yeah.
So, and that's only going to improve.
Everybody's up. Yeah. We saw over the weekend NASCAR, because we already talked about the Bundesliga, but NASCAR, different rules, different regulations, but that social distancing also went out the door when it came to pit stops, because as you know, you've been to NASCAR racing. When the guy's changing the tire, he needs to be passed the tire from somebody else. The guy that's taking the nuts off and all that. It's a lot of hand passing.
I believe the crew is not as big.
No, they've downsized the crew. Yeah.
Downsized the crew.
Yeah.
I have more of a reservation on the athlete. And sometimes a lot of folks don't, think a NASCAR driver is an athlete.
Right.
To be put in a car with that heat.
Yes.
Over a long period of time.
Yes.
So NASCAR is actually trying to make up these races in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm saying
they have another race this weekend at the same track.
So you've got a driver. I was shocked, even though I knew the driver Kyle Busch. So he's one, obviously a very prominent racer in the major NASCAR series, but he runs trucks.
Yes.
And he runs the low division car.
Right.
Well, he's going to do all of them.
Right.
So where one driver might be doing one race a weekend, he's doing 3.
Yes.
So just think of it. If they're trying to make up 4 races in, let's say, 3 weeks, he's putting a lot of time in the car. So it's mentally, and we know this as an athlete, when your body is overheating, it can do some trouble to you.
Yeah.
If you're not hydrated enough and the whole nine.
Yeah. We see right from the start, first lap, crash. And you're right, because inside those cars is extremely hot, and you see these guys when they get to the pit stop, they're quickly trying to get something to put some liquid in them. as much as they can then take. But that whole time and the concentration level, moving at the speed you're moving, I was really intrigued with watching how they actually detail how things happen. There was an incident in the race where the side webbing came off one of the strips on the side and got into a spoiler of one of the cars. And instantly the car started to overheat because it wasn't getting any air into there. And the way the guy got it off, he the commentator had indicated the only way to get it off is get up behind another car so it comes loose and it blows off. Well, and the guy was leading. So he allowed the second car to get around him. He goes up behind it, and what happens? It comes off, but hits the car behind him, but it didn't hit where it was blocking the fan. So obviously the car stayed cool, but the driver, using all sorts of methods to get the sticky tape off of his car, was able to do that. And I'm sitting there amazed at how technical a race like that is, and you need that physicality.
NASCAR is so many layers in NASCAR. I mean, the joke of NASCAR is all about just turning left.
Yeah.
But when you look at a team, I think that's when everybody, the so-called Jeff Gordons of the world, before he retired, he would get all the praise and accolades. But he had one of the best crews for years.
Yeah.
And those crews would get it in and out when it needs to get in and out.
Yeah.
That shop was one of the best shops they're going. Yeah. So when you look at NASCAR, it's so many people play a very important part, and because it's built off of, I would say, aerodynamics, and every little piece of tape, any little thing that's out of sync, a dent in the car could mess up the aerodynamics. Yeah. How high the car is, how low it is. We drive on the track, I drive down low, I drive up high.
Yeah.
Oh, but don't forget what the tire wear. What about when the sun goes behind the clouds? Yeah. I mean, it's so many things. And for a competitor, I've always liked it because it could change any minute.
That's right.
It could change any minute. A weather system could come through. We've seen that many times.
Right. And if your crew's not prepared,
it just changes.
Yeah.
You can see a car that's being very dominant in the first 200 laps, and then he has a hard time finishing. I mean, it's
air pressure and the tires can make a big difference as well. I mean,
and like I said, we get back to the athlete when we're talking about heat. Once we know that once your mind gets tired, in any sport, when your mind gets tired, you will make mistakes.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, let's take our final commercial break, and we'll be back with more sports on islandstats.com. Welcome back to the Island Stats Sports Show here with co-host Jason Ford, Juggling Jay, as they call him, the man himself. Jason, we've gotten the word that the League Two in England has come to an end with Reggie Lamb, who was not extended another contract with Cambridge United. His season is over. However, Jonte Smith with Cheltenham Town, they're in the playoffs. So at some point in time, they will play, because they said that they will play the playoff matches to see who gets promoted. In League One, we're waiting for an update with Nathan Trott, who is on loan from West Ham United, playing for AFC Wimbledon. They're in that division. And of course, we have Nakeem Wells in the championship with Bristol City, who are just, I believe, 2 points or 1 point out of a playoff spot with games remaining. So it's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in the boardrooms and so forth. So be interesting to see how that plays out, because I know everybody's focused on the Premier League, but it's that much more to play for in those other leagues, because there's promotion, and with promotion from the championship, there's a lot of money at stake.
Well, I think you just have to just split it up. As players, you think of yourself, you're in the shop window.
Yes.
Especially when there's lower leagues, you're in the shop window. So every minute of playing time is going to be crucial. I think it's just easier letting your agent deal with the other stuff. Because you're trying to manage or even think about it might affect. Right now, the main goal is you to be the best who you are on the field.
Yeah.
The agent, just make sure you're healthy, you got a good agent, because the agent's going to have some work to do. Especially if you look at someone like Reggie, where they didn't get to finish.
Right.
And is out of contract. So obviously you would love to have that playoff shopping window, or, you see that in the States where players come alive in the playoffs, they end up getting these big contracts. You see in baseball, players come alive in the World Series, all of a sudden they get a big, huge contract after that.
Right.
You're in the shop window. So you just hope that your agent is in position to do the best for you, obviously, during this time.
We'll go back to England, because their cricket season is due. The government has said that there will be no domestic cricket until at least July 1st. But there's a lot of talk right now around the Caribbean, because the West Indies are scheduled to tour England. They were due to start the first week in June. That got pushed back to mid-July. There's talks that they will travel. The players from the West Indies want to play. Obviously, the players from England want to play as well. But that they've already decided there will be no fans. The West Indies have indicated that they need to get there 4 weeks ahead of the scheduled first match, only to first quarantine, and then allow them to train and be prepared. I mean, I doubt if they'll have practice matches. As years go by, when tours happen, they usually play a county team here and there, and a 3-day match, 2-day match, and a limited overs match, and then go and play the test match. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the two administrations, and then obviously if it does come off, how those matches will be played.
Well, I'll go back to, you just mentioned something about practice matches. I still think that is possible. One of the things that are being put forward is these games being held in Manchester and Southampton, especially on Trafford, and I'm not sure the grounds in Southampton, where at these grounds they actually have hotels.
Yes.
So it's ideal for, containment. So what you do, there's invite 2 more teams.
Quarantine.
So you're on quarantine.
Right.
And then you have like a little series or whatever, each West Indies and the West Indies will be able to play these teams as warm-up matches.
Right.
So I think there's, because like I said, it's a hotel there. So I'm pretty sure that there are more than 30 rooms.
Yeah.
So it's enough room to do something. Now, we have the other willing party, I'm pretty sure, because even if you look at those county teams, they'll be looking to start their season too.
Yes.
Some way, somehow. So they'll be looking for some type of
warm-ups and practices as well.
Warm-ups and stuff like that. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Right.
I just heard a comment from the captain of West Indies, Homer, and it's like, look, I can't knock basically paraphrase, can't knock nobody if they don't want to go.
Right. Right.
Because some athletes, as we do know, have underlying medical issues.
Yes.
And so some not gonna feel comfortable, but you're gonna probably just have to go with what you got. Another interesting thing that I didn't think of until I saw it in the report is the ICC looking to ban saliva.
Yes. I was going to ask you that. That was going to be my next question. As a former cricketer, although you had pads on your hands.
Great.
How do you think? Because some bowlers love to do that. Some bowlers love to,
and some of it's habitual.
Yes.
Some of it's very habitual.
Right.
Okay. Let's think of so what for folks who are not doesn't really know what it's going to be. What is the advantage of saliva? Okay, so normally, especially for an opening bowler, is obviously they want to keep shining the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if somebody's hitting the ball on the ground, it's going to get dirty.
Right.
So, get a nice little on the ball, you're able to polish it aside. And with swing bowlers, they will want one side, shine the other one.
Yes.
Right? Obviously, for even later when you want to reverse swing, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a spin bowler, they're finding every way possible to beat up the ball, as they'll say. So it will affect the open bowlers. Mm-hmm. The batsman's going to love it.
Right.
The batsman will love it. So I think just the open bowlers. And if you look at, I just hate to say this, but if you look at the two teams we're talking about, who will benefit from that? Would probably be the West Indies.
Right.
Because England's known as Anderson and the likes, they're known basically for that swing ball.
Right.
So
I'm glad you mentioned about scuffing up the ball, because remember, some years ago, Australia came up with an idea of bouncing the ball in, and the ICC eventually said no, because at that time they had Shane Warne, who was beating everybody, burning at the back of his hand and all sorts of things. So he wanted a beat up ball as soon as possible. So they devised a plan that, okay, from the boundary we're throwing it in, but we're going to skip it in, so we're going to rough the ball up. And once they found out, it's like, no.
Now, just think about it now. So what they done back then, and you see in some competitions now, they will change the ball out to accidental overs.
Yes.
To alleviate that.
Right.
Because if you're the days you play, you attempted to play.
You played.
But by the time that ball got to about the 42nd, 43rd over, it was not round anymore.
No.
It was not round.
Yeah.
So you would never get true bounce. You would never get that out of that ball. No. Now, if you had some of the likes what we had here, Colin Al James, these guys who are banging the ball a country mile and banging it off a building, and it was coming back dented. It was coming back not the side, and it was amazing because years later I was watching cricket and seeing umpires pull out the little tool they have,
measure the ball,
measure the ball, make sure that it's in a proper shape, and all. I'm like, well, boy, times have changed because a spin bowler with a ball that's a little oblongs, like, okay, what kind of performance them today? And especially if they knew what to do with it. And so it would be interesting if from this situation is that they allow a quicker changeover in the ball.
Right.
Because, every competition has a set amount of overs that you need to change the ball, but what they make it even less.
Yeah.
It's something, put it this way, that would be the argument for the bowler.
Right. One thing's for sure.
If you can take this from me, at least give me something.
The balls are going to have to be cheaper, because right now, a game ball is almost, I think, $60.
And in Bermuda, it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah. So you imagine if you need 3 or 4 balls.
I think you need an excess of 4 to 6 balls per match.
So imagine what you need. Man, it just adds to it. But hopefully, things get worked out and we can get back into some.
The other thing, just to bring it all back, I wonder if some of those things will be implemented
Well,
Because last year, and I'm going to say that because last season, the ICC made the implementation of the card system.
yes. Right.
And we was wondering if it was going to make it into a local game, which we didn't see.
Right. Everything takes its time. Everything takes its time. There's a trickle-down effect in Bermuda.
Not to say that it's not going to come, but it just, when, will it be and once again, it's the reason they're doing it is for safety. So,
definitely.
Once again, like you said earlier, when it came to other sports, once we paramount and then the rest is going to go on risk.
Yeah.
It's like NASCAR. I hate to say this here, but every time you get in a NASCAR, you could possibly lose your life.
That's right.
So, powerboating, any motorsport, you could lose your life.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that happen. We're seeing tragedies happen.
Yeah.
But if you ask any one of those, or I hate to say it, okay, the driver, going back to NASCAR, the driver, Newman, he raced the other day.
Yes.
He had a terrible crash
Right.
in his last race.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had basically retired, but, you let him give a chance for them to jump back in the seat, they're willing to get back
And
out
that was the thing. Without any practice races, his first race back is following his near-death experience.
He was doing the virtual racing.
Yeah.
So I'm ready. No, you're not ready. and somebody who doesn't, can't fathom. Oh, just
Yeah.
no. As the athlete, as the competitor, it's like I'm ready to get back on the horse.
Once those juices are flowing, it is something. Well, Jason, we've come to the end of the first sports show here on IslandStats.com. What's that?
Without other co-hosts.
Well, I guess Tottenham was a little bit afraid to face United today.
Hopefully he joins us next week.
Yeah, but I do want to let people know that Island Stats will be starting 2 series next week. One on Tuesday, it will be called The Captains. We've been in touch with match captains, and we're looking to do other captains around the island. And every Tuesday we'll be featuring the captains. And then on Thursdays we'll be doing interviews with former athletes, talking about back in their day when they were competing. So that's Tuesdays for the captains and Thursdays for the remembering when with athletes. So
can't wait.
So we had some funny talks. I'm going to
hear the stories that talk about you playing football back in the day. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Okay, Mr. Well, folks, thank you for joining us here on Island Stats Sports Show. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, May 27th, for another edition of Island Stats Sports. Have a good night. Cool.
We ain't stopped, right?
Yeah.